Hi, everyone. We are back here for Chapter 15, Beyond Consumer Relationships. So essentially what happens, it's like that the relationship is between two people, the consumer and the marketer, or the consumer and the organization, firm, product, however you want to define it. And then what happens sort of like after that, like the spray out, if you will, from that. So learning outcomes: list and define the behavioral outcomes of consumption. Know why and how consumers complain and spread word of mouth, and know how word of mouth helps and hurts marketers. Use the concept of switching costs to understand why consumers do or do not continue to do business with the company. Describe each component of true consumer loyalty and link the concept of consumer co-creation of value to consumption outcomes. Okay, so we're going to attack them one by one. So after consumption, there is a thought process that goes on. We talked about these before, the disconfirmation and positive and negative emotions that people might feel, and then the behavior. That's what we're talking about today. So what the behavior, people complain, there's word of mouth, you might switch products, loyalty, that kind of thing. So procedural justice and the critical incident. So procedural justice is essentially how did the actual transaction or the performance of the service, how did that go? How was the actual thing of it? And then critical incident, exchange between consumers and businesses that the consumers view as unusually negative with implications for the relationship. A rude salesperson, a dirty store, not getting back to someone, a damaged product, that kind of thing. So complaining behavior, everyone knows a complainer. Everybody complains themselves at some point. Consumer seeks out someone to share an opinion with regarding a negative consumption event. And when they had a bad experience, they want to tell someone, essentially. And they want to find someone, they want to have some sort of action to fix that. And there are different types of complainers: dissatisfied and angry consumers, and price-sensitive consumers. I'm going to move this over here a little bit. Dissatisfied and angry consumers, and then price-sensitive consumers, people who really are focused on how much they paid for something. And generally speaking, consumers from collectivist cultures are less likely to complain. So what is a collectivist culture? A collectivist culture is a culture for which everyone is in it together, so to speak. Like they're there to help each other out. On the opposite of a collectivist culture is an individualistic culture. And individualistic cultures are really just interested in having individualistic cultures are interested in what's best for them and their family, and they really don't care about society as a whole, whereas collectivist cultures are concerned about what's best for everybody. So if there's a bad product out there, they want everybody to know about it. A collectivist culture, they want to prevent people from having other countrymen or their other members of their culture, or their subculture, from having a bad experience, or they want to share the good experience with them. So a nice little graphic on complainers versus non-complainers. Complainers tell others when someone has done something poorly. They can be a valuable source of information. We see it all the time in blogs and reports and that kind of thing on websites. They are more likely to become happy if the company intercedes and says, "Listen, we're going to fix this for you," and they're more likely to exchange. If their problem has been addressed to their satisfaction, they're more likely to complain. Non-complainers will tell others. They may tell others, friends and family, or they're not necessarily, the complainer is going to tell anybody. The non-complainer is just going to tell people close to them. And they might post negative messages on social network sites. They don't necessarily complain directly to the organization. They don't seek any kind of satisfaction. They don't give the marketer an opportunity to right what they see as the wrong. And so those are the ones that the marketer doesn't know about, which is a problem. No one likes to complain. No one likes to hear complaints, but it's better to hear a complaint so you can fix it than someone sort of like off, complaining but not looking for any kind of satisfaction. So there are ways to handle consumer complaints. Any of you who have worked in customer service, any of you you don't have to be on the phone with customer service to deal with customer service issues. Anyone who works retail or one-to-one with customers can use these tips. You always want to thank the customer for providing the information, and you want to be able to understand what the facts are. Issue a sincere apology. Show some sort of empathy. Make sure that the customer knows that you can understand why they feel the way they do. Makes the customer feel less alone. Explain to them how you're going to fix what happened, and one big important factor is for the company is to empower people to fix the consumer complaint, and always communicate clearly and professionally. So, like locally, any of you who work at Wegmans or have ever been to Wegmans know that they will take anything back. The people who work at the customer service desk at Wegmans the second last one is a classic example. They're empowered to take corrective action, issue a refund, give them an exchange, whatever it may be. Don't make it so bureaucratic that it's impossible to fix someone's complaint or address their complaint. So, what revenge? Ooh, that's a big word. Rancorous revenge is this idea that someone screams and yells and makes it known they're loud about their complaint. Retaliatory revenge is really nasty, and we hope that doesn't happen. And a consumer might become violent with employees, try to vandalize a business. Gratefully, that does not happen very often, but both are things that we don't want to see happen at all. So there is positive word of mouth, or negative word of mouth. Negative word of mouth is that when consumers pass on information about, I had this bad experience. I went to this restaurant the other day and I opened up and the piece of bread was moldy, and they tell everybody. Positive word of mouth, they spread information about positive experiences. I went there and I was, I needed a part for my computer, or something happened with my phone, and they were so helpful. And you go out and you tell everybody I had this really great experience with something. So that's this idea of like positive versus negative word of mouth. So we of course want positive word of mouth. So ways to handle negative public publicity: one is you just ignore it, and maybe it will die out on its own. One is that you deny responsibility for anything that happened. One is that you take responsibility for it. And the other thing is to give people objective information, release information, let people make their own decision about it. It depends upon so much about the situation itself, what is going on at the moment, the type of a complaint, how far and wide it is. So, we see all sorts of examples of this in the media, and ultimately, the best thing really is for an organization to take some level of responsibility for it, and to, again, to share the facts with people, so that it's easy, particularly this day and age with social media, that things can just can get completely out of control. So the more facts and information that people have, the better off everybody is. So lots of implications of negative word of mouth. One is that it prevents other companies from falling victim, other consumers to falling victim to the company. So it prevents, if someone had one bad experience, then they know not to go back to XYZ place. It can hurt sales and damage the image of the firm. It lowers the consumer's attitude towards the brand and makes the firm's advertising harder to believe. Negative word of mouth attached to a company really can spill over into the entire industry. So say, I don't know. I'm not going to pick one because I don't want to pick on one industry. But negative word of mouth, it can be really damaging. So third-party endorsements are something that's very important. We also refer to as influencers, form of publicity in which an objective outsider provides publicly available purchase recommendations. So it could be based on, and also third-party endorsements can be from, say, it could be an opinion leader. It also could be, say, from certain publications, Consumer Reports, that kind of thing. So they look at a variety of different information, and they also try to give recommendations that come from subject experts. People who really know about skiing equipment, or really know about golf, or really know about different type of a laptop or a computer or whatever. So third-party objective endorsements might be from some sort of industry organization, that kind of thing. So there are, when we talk about switching costs, so what's the cost with changing from one choice to another choice? What's the cost between going from one brand to another brand? So there are different categories. One is procedural, the actual act of going through and the lost time that you have to learn about a new product. Financial resources that might be used in learning about the new product. And then relational, emotional, and psychological consequences of changing from one brand, retailer, or service provider to another. Let's say you've always driven a Chevrolet, and you have a bad experience with them. And I'm just using it as an example. So, but maybe you want to, so that can be hard to switch. So you've been, driving a certain brand of car for, 15 years. Now all of a sudden you've been brand loyal to them, and somehow that relationship has fallen apart. There is some emotional consequence of changing from one brand to another brand for the consumer. It's this idea of betrayal, that kind of thing. So what are some things that might contribute to switching costs? Unfair treatment, unfair prices, and then what we talked about before, procedural, financial, and relational costs all lead to switching. And sometimes, it's harder. It's very important for companies to keep consumers happy, because it's more expensive. Let me put it this way. It's less expensive to fix the problem than it is to get a new customer, because it's expensive to get new customers. The advertising and the time that goes into it. So this is just a chart. It's not super important. Vulnerability to defections based on consumer satisfaction or dissatisfaction. So it depends upon how competitive things are and the switching costs and the level of satisfaction or dissatisfaction. So it's this idea you have to sort of weighing everything out. Okay, so customer share. We talked about this in Marketing 1. I referred to it in that as share of customer. So share of customer share of wallet, share of customer, all sorts of different things. So do you always buy Honda? And do you always use GE appliances, that kind of thing? So it's an issue of consumer loyalty. Do you always buy your groceries at Wegmans? Do you always buy your groceries at Tops? Do you always, are you a tried and true Aldi's customer? So that kind of thing. So it gets customer share. How much can we count on you for always buying your groceries from us? How much can we count on you to always buy your car from us? So consumer inertia is that essentially people will remain with a brand or a store until something motivates them to change. So until some sort of revolutionary thing occurs and they change. So do people always fly on Southwest, and then all of a sudden JetBlue comes along and offers things that so revolutionary and so much better or so much different that they'll start to do that, or vice versa. So there's one way to this idea to increase customer share is this idea of loyalty card programs. It encourages people to repeat purchasing. More spending brings more rewards. They kind of get you hooked in. You buy 9 cups of coffee, you get the 10th free, or you buy 10 cups of coffee, you get the 11th free, that kind of thing. And from that information, too, you swipe your card or you use a card or whatever it may be, it also allows, that's a gold mine of consumer information, customer information that companies gain through that. So there's also this idea of customer commitment. How dedicated what's the sense of attachment that someone has to a product or a brand. And high people that have the more committed you are, the more you're likely to spread positive word of mouth. So we also talked about this in Marketing One, customer lifetime value. Like, so over the course of time, how valuable is that consumer to you? So the idea is that customer perks repeat good behavior. So customer perks will, help people, talk about how, in terms of post behavior, so talking up the company, encouraging other people to buy it, continuing to buy it from them. The idea of the valuable customer is tremendously profitable for companies. So you really want to keep people happy as much as you possibly can. Okay, so that's loyal customers. Now let's talk about some anti-loyal consumers. They will do everything they can to avoid doing business with someone. They'll do everything they can to avoid going to XYZ store. And usually what they've done, the reason they feel this way is because they had some bad experience and that the marketer couldn't fix for them for whatever reason. And sometimes it's just not worth it to go after to try to help or fix the situation with the unhappy consumer. We talked about this in Marketing One. We talked about the barnacles and the true friends and the butterflies. And so these are sort of the, you could say to a certain extent that it's the butterfly is anti-loyal, or the stranger in that chart. And the barnacle too is someone that there's a different kind of loyalty, but you don't necessarily want that person around too much. So you want to make sure that you build relationships with the right customers. So let's take a look at value and relationship outcomes. So needs, wants, costs, benefits, we talked about this. Then what is the value? And then after that, what's the quality of the relationship? When we talk about the quality of the relationship, how loyal is that person to the firm? So there's different types of loyalty. Functional loyalty is maintenance services, car repair, pharmacies, dentist office, internet services. That's utilitarian value. It brings them back, usually more than hedonic value. So when we talk about functional, so how happy are with your internet service provider or your that kind of thing. How happy are you with the people who perform the maintenance on your car? Then experiential is hedonic value. So it's the idea, how much fun do people have when they're someplace, or how safe do they feel there, or how how happy are they with the quality of the product in terms of salon service, dining in terms of the quality of the food, the quality of the service, cleanliness, resort hotels, all kind of fall into the same thing. So functional and experiential. Functional focuses on utilitarian value. Experiential focuses on hedonic value. So there's also this idea of the consumer, working together, that the consumer and the marketer works together. So there's consumer engagement and co-creation of value. Consumer engagement and co-creation of value encourages consumers to tell others and exhibit loyalty-related behavior. So it's the idea of if you can engage the customer in some way, that they will tell others and about their satisfaction with the product, and they will be loyal in terms of coming back again. So unengaged consumers who maybe it's not super important to them, it's not a big it's not a product that's not really important, not important to them, or not vital to their life, or it's just not something that's a big priority for them. Those customers are, generally speaking, easier to keep happy because they spend less time thinking about it, if that makes sense. So, think about products that you use all the time or are super important to you, as opposed to products that maybe are not as vital to your life or as important to you, or but you spend a lot of time with them. Okay, so consumer marketer relationship and relationship quality. This idea that this idea of a relationship, that the two goals of marketing, again, are to create value for customers and build strong relationships. And this is where this comes in. So it's the exchange between the consumer and the business. And customers have a lifetime value to the firm. And so you have to continue to work with that. A marketer should never assume that someone is going to stay loyal or kind of going to continue to repeat purchases from there. And then relationship quality is essentially how much connection there is between them, how much, how healthy the relationship is in terms of positive feedback and listening to each other and open communication and that kind of thing. So characteristics of relationship quality: competence, people know what they're doing, you communicate, there's trust, equity or fairness, some level of personalization, that that experience is gratifying, and that people remain as customer-oriented as possible. The marketer remains as customer-oriented as possible. So here we go. Here's the summary of Chapter 15, talking about beyond consumer relationships. So what happens after the purchase is made, and going forward in time. So some businesses are interested in post-consumption behavior. There's dissatisfied customers engaged in complaining behavior and might spread negative word of mouth. Companies use loyalty programs to increase customer share and commitment. There's switching costs for someone when they're going to switch from one brand to another, which is can be a deterrent for a consumer, and also an opportunity for the marketer to try to lessen those switching costs by keeping the person to stay to address the issues. And there are a variety of different characteristics of the relationship quality, among them competence, trust, and equity. Okay, so thank you all for listening to this about Chapter 15, and we will see you back here for Chapter 16, which is the final chapter in the book. We're going to talk about consumer and marketing misbehavior.